If you're taking something for a therapeutic purpose, you just want to take it in like the simplest, easiest, most effective way possible. For me, like an oil under the tongue, it's fast acting. You hold the oil under your tongue and it sort of absorbs through there and then you swallow it. But, that's just the most effective, quickest, it's just a simple way to do it.
Welcome to the Healthy Skin Show with Jennifer Fugo, where we're flipping everything you've been told about your chronic skin issues upside down and connecting you with alternative solutions your dermatologist never told you about.
Welcome back to episode number 35 of the Healthy Skin Show. Today we're going to dive deeper into the whole concept about CBD oil and what you need to keep in mind before you make any purchases. And the reason that I wanted to have this discussion a second time is because I got a ton of questions after our first podcast episode, number 14, where we talked about the benefits of CBD for not just the whole body, but as well for the skin. And so I figured let's unpack this further because there can be a lot of challenges in finding CBD products that are actually CBD. Before we dive into this topic today, I wanted to answer a question from a listener. Thank you so much, Leslie, for submitting the following question.
Hello, my name is Leslie Kazubik, and I have had the skin rash for about 2 years now, and I believe it is because of my condition with Candida. Now, I understand that Candida has a yeast die-off that puts those mycotoxins into your body. Now, what I'd like to know is, are the toxins what's causing the rash? Is what I'm eating causing the rash? I mean, I'm pretty much on a keto diet. I mean, I will have a bread here or there, but not very often. So I'm just wondering what triggers the rash on my arms. Sometimes they are very itchy and sometimes they are not. Thank you so much, and I hope you can answer my question.
Thank you, Leslie, so much for submitting this question. It's a good one, and it's one that's interesting because you're already on a diet that tends to be very low in sugar and carbs. And so it would make sense if you felt that your issues are yeast-based, that the diet alone would make a huge improvement, and yet it doesn't sound like that's what's happening. And there's a few reasons why. And the first is that, as you can probably guess, Candida is caused by a fungal overgrowth of some sort, which actually originates in the gut, even though it can show up elsewhere in the body. And typically the way you'd like to think about this is that whatever's going on in the gut, when it overgrows, it then manifests outwardly. So we start to see, say, vaginal yeast infections, thrush, athlete's foot, fungal infections on your toenails and in different spots or even on the skin. Now, here's the thing. Despite what you've read online, diet alone cannot solve and eliminate Candida. I know that this probably goes contrary to what everyone has thought and read, but in my clinical experience, diet is just not enough, especially to eliminate yeast in and of itself. A lot of times we'll read about things like the anti-Candida diet, for example, and while that can be helpful in managing symptoms, it will not eliminate a fungal overgrowth. And so that's one reason why, if Candida is an issue for you, it's likely that the gut is now set up to favor an overgrowth of Candida. And again, that's if Candida is the main and only culprit here. The yeast and their waste products are highly inflammatory for your gut. They're also very difficult and challenging for your liver to deal with because the liver is tasked with dealing with the waste products of bacteria, parasites, and yeast. And that's why it's just so much better if you believe that you have some sort of dysbiotic state or an infection to find out what exactly is going on and then utilize the appropriate antimicrobial blends, whether it's specific to fungal infections or fungal overgrowths, or if it's more for parasites or maybe a just general dysbiosis with infections. That way, you're able to more effectively eliminate whatever the issue is. And I will also say this, probiotics can be helpful, but to be honest with you, not all probiotics are appropriate for everyone who has, say, candida or a gut infection or something like that. It really is more based off of your symptoms. For example, do you have more diarrhea or do you have constipation? Or maybe you poop like a champ and it's 1 to 3 times a day and you're good to go. But that's a big factor in what would be appropriate for you because, for example, a lot of times you'll read about S. boulardii or Saccharomyces boulardii online being great to help in the treatment of candida. However, if you are constipated, that is a horrible idea because it's going to make you more constipated and you will inevitably feel worse. And here's the other piece with gut issues. And we know from all of the many episodes now at this point that the gut is directly tied to the skin microbiome and our ability to have healthy skin. Proper elimination, so proper pooping, is very, very, very important when you do any type of gut protocol. Otherwise, what you essentially kill in the process of using something like antifungals or antimicrobials is sitting in you. And that is not a healthy state to be in. So what's important to me when I work with a client and they've definitely got some sort of gut issue, the priority before we even get to using those antifungals or antimicrobials is to make sure that we're as close as humanly possible to pooping like a normal person. Now, if it's diarrhea, on the other hand, that we're dealing with, S. boulardii can be fantastic, and that can help slow things down. If you are constipated, one probiotic that I really like, and I've talked about a few times, and you've also heard mentioned a few times on the podcast, is Megaspore Biotic. And that can be very helpful in somebody who is more constipated. So you're not going at least once a day, or when you do go, you're straining, or if it's like pebbles. And Megaspore can be really helpful on a number of other levels. So that's a really great option for you if you feel like you're not sure where to begin. And if you're interested in giving it a shot, I'll put the link to where you can actually check the product out and even purchase it if you so choose. It is a professional grade product, so you do have to actually create an account first. And another point I'd love to touch on here is the concern you have about those die-off symptoms, which, to be fair, is a real concern. And in fact, I've had a lot of clients who've done candida detoxes or cleanses on their own and have gotten way worse. So it makes me very uncomfortable when people ask if they should do a candida detox when they have chronic skin rash issues, because of so many people that I have worked with who have seen their symptoms go from maybe what were annoyances to now complete disasters, and they feel like they broke themselves. But one of the reasons why is that your liver must be supported through the process, because as organisms die, they also produce toxins in the process, which your liver is tasked with addressing. I've mentioned that. And the reason oftentimes that we get die-off is, number one, you can end up pushing the process too quickly and forcing your body to rebalance its microbiome in a way that it just cannot handle. We're all different, by the way, so you know that. And your liver may not have the appropriate nutrients or ingredients that it needs in order for its natural biochemical pathways, things like glycine or glutathione, for example, in order to handle the waste products that are being sent its way. The result is this situation where the liver can't keep up with what it's dealing with. It becomes overloaded, and as a result, we start to experience die-off. So to me, as a clinical nutritionist, when a client reports back that they're having these experiences, that's where you have to know how to tinker with the protocol in order to get them to a point where they can remain in a comfortable state without creating severe flares or other symptoms throughout the body that can result. And for those of you who think it's normal and you're just supposed to muscle through this exacerbation of symptoms, that is not correct. It is, in fact, very, very irresponsible. And if whomever you're working with tells you just keep on going, it'll eventually subside, I would say that that is your body's way of saying that it needs A, support, B, to possibly slow down, and C, maybe what you're using is not the right fit for your particular system. And so to sum this all up, the key points here are number one, find out what exactly it is. If you believe you have some sort of dysbiosis or infection, it's important to identify what it is. And by the way, guys, that spit test is not a thing. There's no clinical proof behind that. So if you want to know if you have Candida, there are other tests out there like an Organics Comprehensive Panel and other functional labs that can help give you a better idea. But the spit test, that is not something to go by. Now, the diet is not something that's going to eliminate Candida. It only manages symptoms, no matter whether it's keto, super low carb, or the anti-Candida diet. So you are not going to rebalance your gut simply by changing the type of prebiotics that you add in or the type of carbs or any number of things. That's really not how it works. You have to use antimicrobial or antifungal or whatever is appropriate in order to eliminate the overgrowth and create the space that's necessary in the gut to even reintroduce those healthier gut bugs. And last but not least, die-off is not normal. That is a sign that we need to tune in, listen to your body, and support your liver. So I hope this is helpful, Leslie. And of course, everybody who's listening, if you've got a question you'd love to submit, head on over to naturalskinshow.com and submit your own question so that I can include it in a future episode. As for today's interview, let's dive in and learn a little bit more about what you should know before you head out and start buying CBD products. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I've got a very special guest who I'm quite excited to interview because we're talking on a topic that is a little bit of I would say a personal favorite of mine. My guest name is Gretchen Litaker, and she is a scientist, journalist, and health editor at Mind Body Green. She has a master's in physiology and biophysics with a concentration in complementary and alternative medicine from Georgetown University and has worked on the academic and clinical side of integrative medicine for many years. Originally from Sedona, Arizona, she was first exposed to natural medicine there, and that really is a hub for natural medicine. And the reason that she's here, and this is the big thing, is that she's the author of 2 books, one that's out right now and one that is coming out. We can certainly, I hope maybe we can have her back and we can talk about this second book. But the first book is called CBD Oil, Everyday Secrets, a Lifestyle Guide to Hemp-Derived Health and Wellness. And the next book coming out is called Magnesium, Everyday Secrets, a Lifestyle Guide to Magnesium Oil, Epsom Salts, and Nature's Relaxation Mineral. Gretchen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a mouthful. Sorry, you got through it so well.
I do my best. But I'm really excited because, the topic of CBD is big, and it's something that still scares most people. and rightfully so. You and I were saying before this interview that just the concept of how do you get in trouble if you have CBD? Can you travel with CBD? You wonder, is it going to make you sick? Are you going to feel high? There's all these questions about it that, not every state has it legalized. And there's still this whole thing going on between the government and whatnot. So can you tell us a little bit, what are the basics of CBD? If somebody was to ask you, what is that? What would you tell them?
So I think the most important thing to know is that CBD is a compound. It's just a single compound that's found in the cannabis plant. And the cannabis plant, like cannabis sativa, includes both marijuana, which is like the psychoactive version, and hemp, which is, non-psychoactive. It's used a lot for clothing, fuel, paper, things like that. So CBD is the compound, and that's the one that everyone is so excited about because for so long, THC, which is the compound that gets you high, sort of had all the fame, and it was strong and it had a lot of medicinal purposes. But now people are just really excited about what CBD can do, and especially excited about the fact that you can get CBD from hemp, which is, a legal way. It's in a little bit of a legal gray area for sure, especially in some states, but it's a legal way to grow it, sell it, consume it.
And actually, really quick, I know we have hemp seed oil and hemp hearts that people will eat. Is that the same type of hemp?
There are a lot of different types of hemp. And I think one mistake we make is thinking that there's a marijuana plant and there's a hemp plant and they're totally different. But Plants aren't like that. Like there's sort of a spectrum. And so marijuana plants have very large flowering portions and THC. And then hemp plants are sort of stocky and they're more like industrial looking, but there's a lot in between. And what people are doing now is sort of breeding traditionally medical marijuana plants to be very low in THC and very high in CBD. So it's sort of like both. But yes, like hemp hearts and hemp seed oil are made from hemp plants, like the same ones that you make textiles out of. That's been legal. Those have been sort of exempt from any type of big federal regulations for a while. So those are, it's the same plant. It's just a matter of what part of the plant contains which compounds and what type of plant you're using.
This is where I start to get concerned. I do recommend at times in my clinical practice that CBD as a supplement can be very helpful. And we're seeing it infused in so many things. I went to a large trade show last year and I got CBD infused water, CBD infused tea, CBD infused coffee, CBD. It's pretty much in anything at this point. But the question becomes, what about quality? I mean, you can go to a vape shop. There's vape shops all over where I live in the area of Philadelphia, and they all have these CBD products. But how do you know that any of it's any good if you're considering adding this to your regimen?
Yeah, this is like by far the most important thing. Like if your listeners listen to any part of this entire, podcast, it should be this part that just sort of like the whole entire supplement industry, like the responsibility falls in the hands of the consumer to make sure they're finding a good product. Like the FDA does not test and approve supplements or CBD before it goes on the market. So it's up to you to make sure you're finding a brand that has your health in mind. And there are so many great CBD brands out there. But sort of like supplements, there are a few that are sort of ruining it for everybody, like they're scams. So the most important thing when you're looking for CBD is to look for CBD that's grown from like organic hemp. And you want a company that is going to be able to provide lab tests that show you the potency and the purity of your exact batch number of oil. And they'll test for heavy metals, they'll test for CBD content, they'll test for microbes, they'll test for everything to make sure like what's on the label is actually in the bottle. And that's really important.
And if you see just like a really snazzy bottle, that shouldn't be the determining factor. Or if it says, oh, it has like triple the dose of CBD, you really want to look for the data to back up what you're going to be putting in your body.
Yeah. In fact, those types of claims should be red flags because like unless they have the data to back it up, they can kind of say anything, and the FDA like only really investigates claims like that if there's an issue. So any CBD brand that you find, like they should have a website. Like if you call them, they should be able to say, let me tell you everything about our lab, how we test our products. I can send you the report that's for your batch number.
Wow. So they'll really send you a report.
Yeah. Some of them have them just posted on their website. And that's just because it's such a budding industry, like, pun intended. And it's important for those, them to be really transparent because like the FDA, I think it might have been 2015, tested like 10 CBD brands, and many of them didn't even contain CBD.
Really?
Yeah. And so they sent warning letters to those companies. So it's really important that you're getting it from a brand that you are familiar with and that is being really transparent.
That's interesting. Okay, so we want to look for organic. We want to look for a brand that has some sort of certification about the batch that you're buying, either on the website or can provide it to you, that is very transparent and is not using super flashy, like a lot of marketing lingo to try and draw you in to get their product noticed above all others.
Yeah, I generally, and that's sometimes a generalization. Like you want to be buying from people who are setting reasonable expectations and, aren't saying like theirs is the best in the entire world and so much different and better than everyone else's.
It's interesting in like the skincare world. There's now these skincare products, I don't know if you've noticed them, that are coming out with CBD incorporated in them, infused in via the oils or moisturizers or lip balms and all sorts of stuff. And I actually started using one particular product that is a serum, a facial serum that has CBD in it. And I was super skeptical, but surprisingly, it does get the redness out of my skin. I was really surprised about that. Do you have any experience with any of these, like other products that are sort of outside what you would consume orally?
Yeah. I mean, and, when I started writing the book, it was like, there were like 3 CBD brands, and now it's like there are 3,000. And you have to also be careful with CBD infused skincare because you want to make sure they're using a quality material. And you also want to make sure, number one, is a lot of skincare products actually contain hemp seed oil, which doesn't contain CBD. So you want to make sure, like if it says it contains hemp, you need to look more closely at the ingredients to make sure it contains hemp oil or hemp extract instead of hemp seed oil, because hemp seed oil is sort of like what you use for cooking. And it does have a lot of antioxidants and, omegas and vitamins, but it's not the same as CBD. So that's like important to know for skincare. But as far as hemp extracts go for inflammation, as far as CBD goes for inflammation, it's really exciting. Like I'm not surprised at all that it would cut down on redness.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because we have this whole world of saying, well, like, we haven't used this before. Why is this so important? Is this like a fad? I've had a bunch of clients ask me that. Like, it just sounds like a fad. And I was like, you know what? To be fair, from my understanding, our body does have what are called endocannabinoid receptors in them. Are you familiar with those? And can you speak to those a little bit about what they are and what they do?
Yeah, I think this, like the science of the endocannabinoid system is going to be like, when we were all learning about the microbiome and we were like, oh my gosh, it's this huge thing in system inside us that affects every part of our health. I think the endocannabinoid system is going to be like everywhere in the next 5 to 10 years. And basically the endocannabinoid system is like a system of what are called endogenous endocannabinoids, which just means that they're compounds that your body produces naturally that are sort of similar to compounds found in plants like CBD. And then there are enzymes and receptors. And basically the whole system just explains why CBD affects our body and how. And we don't know a ton about it yet, but we do know that like the endocannabinoid system and how it functions has been connected in studies to like headaches, IBS, infertility, like all of these kind of different conditions have somehow been linked to alterations in this endocannabinoid system.
So if somebody's having skin issues, especially with like rashes and whatnot, typically, it's been my experience, it's not usually just their skin that's kind of gone awry.
Internal, yeah.
Yeah, so there's usually some sort of internal inflammatory process or maybe a combination of things that's going on that could be gut related or hormone related, all sorts of things. But my sense of it is that the benefit here, while yes, it could help your skin, it can also help other systems as well. So as a general practice, it could be something that could be really beneficial in ways that you don't fully even know. So edible type products, if you're familiar with those, like I said, I actually got a bag of coffee that is infused with CBD, which I don't drink coffee, but that just sort of seemed strange to me. And, we always, think of like the funny of like, oh, those kids made, brownies they have candies that have CBD. If someone is going to consume these, is there any research about what's maybe the better way? I just personally have preferred the oil, just straight oil, but do you have any thoughts on that?
My thoughts on this are really like, if you're taking something for a therapeutic purpose, you just want to take it in like the simplest, easiest, most effective way possible. For me, like an oil under the tongue, it's fast acting. You hold the oil under your tongue and it sort of absorbs through there and then you swallow it. But, that's just the most effective, quickest, it's just a simple way to do it. When you put CBD in like a cookie or something, like it has to go through the digestive system, which, if you're having a skin issue, you might also very well be having a bit of a gut issue. And then there's the chance that you might not be absorbing everything. It's just this added obstacle. When I take CBD, I take it under my tongue. Actually, the fastest delivery method is smoking because it goes straight through the lungs, but that's probably not the healthiest way to take it either. So for me, I'm like a total loyalist to the oils right under the tongue, because even if you take it in a supplement capsule, which some people prefer to do because they don't like the taste, you just have that added barrier of like, okay, so if the capsule's 15 milligrams, like how much am I really absorbing? You know, how do we know it's getting where it's supposed to go? And I just don't think there's enough research to know exactly how it's being absorbed. And it's just an added obstacle. So I'm pretty loyal to the oils.
And you bring up a really good point. It's a question I didn't even think to ask, but you know, there's also a lot of people who have issues absorbing fats. I have a lot of clients that have digestive problems where they're not able to absorb fats. So that's true. If you're consuming it orally and you don't have a gallbladder, for example, where there's not enough bile there to help get the fats solubilized and into the system, or you've got a really inflamed gut, it's actually quite common to end up pooping out all of the fats and lipids that you are consuming. So the CBD is able to be absorbed sublingually under the tongue then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just taught me something.
And this is sort of information gathered by, you know, reading a lot of studies, but also interviewing like a lot of doctors, you know, from California and Colorado who have been doing this for 40 years. But if you take it under the tongue, anywhere from like 5 minutes to 20 minutes, you should like notice something.
Okay.
So it's pretty quick.
Cool. That is really, really helpful, actually. And I also like your approach to this is like very common sense, very practical. And that's part of the process here. I recognize that people listening to this may be something that's really new to them. And listening or hearing about this once or twice may not be enough, because I understand there are people that are skeptical. And by the way, I also just want to mention, if you're on medications, you can have interactions with CBD. So you just want to check before you ever start a CBD product that there isn't an issue with the medication that you're taking. And it has to do with the detox system in your liver. I just want to say that to everybody, because I did not know that until I really started researching it for somebody that was on a lot of meds. And I realized, whoa, you know what? Just this, even though it's natural, we still need to be respectful of everything that's going on in the body and make sure not to push things too hard and assume that because it's natural, it's not going to potentially cause something to go a little awry. So feel free to talk to your doctor. If your doctor's not sure, do some research, but find somebody that can actually help you make an educated decision. But Gretchen, I really want to thank you for joining us. And, you know, I would love to have you to come back sometime to talk about magnesium. Magnesium is such an important mineral. And I think a lot of people assume that we don't need magnesium in our diets because we get enough of it. And I don't necessarily believe that. I do think doing some level of supplementation tends to be, at least for me, is very helpful, but I also find it helpful for clients. And it'd be nice to have you come back and talk about that.
Yeah, magnesium's amazing. It's amazing that you can write an entire book on it, but you really can't.
That is true.
So I promise you it's interesting, the whole thing.
That is true. And I know that I would be fascinated, but we'll make it fascinating for everybody who's listening.
Perfect.
So again, you've got this fantastic book, which is available on Amazon, and I'll put a link directly to that. So for anybody who's kind of on the fence and you're still in your information gathering phase, this would be a great resource for you to check out, as well as Gretchen's website, GretchenLideker.com. She's also on Instagram as well. We'll put all the links in the show notes. That way it makes it super easy for you guys to find everything. And Gretchen, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I know that the issues involved with CBD can either make you feel really uncomfortable or you're just not quite sure where you stand. And that's why I'm looking forward to having a continued conversation about the use of CBD when you have chronic skin conditions, as well as making sure that you are fully in the know about how to make the best choices possible with whatever products you choose to buy. If you've got an experience or a question you'd love to share, head on over to this episode's post and leave a comment there. And of course, if anything has jumped out at you today, share this podcast with someone you know and love who could really use this support and inspiration. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.